Hey everybody, Dr. John Douillard here with LifeSpa Ayurveda. Today I want to talk about sugar alcohols, in particular xylitol and erythritol. In the last year, there's been two studies, both done by the same group, that have found that xylitol and erythritol are linked to an increased clotting factor, which increases risk of stroke, thrombus, and a cardiovascular event. Now, before those studies were published, these sugar alcohols were considered to be quite healthy and beneficial. In particular, they don't create an insulin spike. They don't activate the pancreas to raise your blood sugar. They actually have been shown to support the proliferation of bifidobacteria in your gut, supporting gut health, supporting metabolic function, cholesterol levels. They've been nothing but good. They go through the entire upper digestion, untouched, undigested, and then they ferment in the large intestine. The only risk there really was some folks have some gas and bloating. That said, for folks who have IBS or really sensitive digestion, they were probably best to be avoided. The pea and FODMAPs, which is a diet that people eat when they have really sensitive digestion, irritable bowel, things like that, is the pea and FODMAPs is called polyols, which is the sugar alcohols. So there was some indicator that these were a challenge to digest. But if you have good digestion, the rule was they're good and there's no problem. You should also know that erythritol is usually mixed in many other sweeteners. Like if you get something with stevia, like Truvia, which you think is all stevia. It isn't stevia. It's mostly erythritol and a little bit of stevia. And many of the natural sugar sweeteners, monk fruit, stevia, they're actually linked with a sugar alcohol. So you want to read the label carefully, not just think Truvia is actually stevia. You want to be careful about that, right? So these sugar alcohols, some of them can come from plant sources, some of them are synthetic. They're definitely highly processed foods. So we have to think about that. They're 25 to 100 times as sweet as a sugar. I think erythritol is about 40% less calories than sugar, and erythritol is like 5% less calories than sugar. Erythritol was always the one that was the easiest to digest of all of them, which is why it's the most famous in most of the sweetened cookies or sweetened products, things like that. Xylitol was usually used for dental care because it's been shown in study after study after study to prevent tooth decay and support oral health and oral hygiene. So it's interesting to think that if it kills the bugs in your mouth, and if you swallow the xylitol, will it also kill the bugs in your gut? Anyway, the study that was done that showed that these sugar alcohols, which sent a wave of fear around the country, were linked to increased cardiovascular events, were poorly done studies. And many experts, including Dr. Peter Attia, who, and I actually linked in the article associated with this video, his complete review of these studies, where he suggests that they were really done poorly. The clotting came about 12 hours after they took the xylitol, the erythritol, but in their own study they said that the xylitol and erythritol were washed out of the body within 4 to 6 hours. So where did that extra xylitol come from that caused the clotting factor at 12 hours? There also was high doses. The body can also make its own xylitol. They didn't check for dietary consumption of these sugar alcohols. So there were a lot of flaws in the study. But at the end of the day, we have something that doesn't increase your blood sugar, 25 to 100 times as sweet as a sugar. And it's a highly processed food. And we all know, we've been hearing again and again, don't eat processed food, don't eat processed food. Even though these may originally come from plants, they're generally synthetically made, the ones you're actually consuming. I would highly recommend that we avoid them to be safe. So many things come on the market, they're great, 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 until we find out that they're not. This is the first indication that they might not be, although the studies are flawed. I just think if we're thinking about eating whole food, as Jack LaLanne said, if anything comes in a wrapper, don't eat it. So I would highly recommend that we just hold off on eating these sugars. And the thing is, the real crux of this matter is we have to break our addiction to the sweet taste. And we have to learn to eat foods that aren't so sweet. Historically, all the foods we have today that are sweet were hybridized to be sweet. They weren't that sweet. So we have this crazy addiction. There was an incredible study where they had a little baby in a hospital, and a group of people came into the hospital room, and one of the people in the group came from behind and offered the baby a little bit of sugar on their tongue. And then they all left. And a couple of days later, another group came in, and that same person was in that group. And the baby looked at this group and looked and looked and looked and locked in on the guy who brought him the sugar. Just incredible hard wiring that we have for that sweet taste. So instead of taking things that are 25 to 100 times as sweet as sugar, I'd highly recommend using a natural sugar if you have to, like date sugar or honey or maple syrup, things like that. Or maybe monk fruit is okay as well. But again, that you want to make sure it's not concentrated. So I would just be careful in trying to dial down your need for the sugar. And in short order, you find that your tea without sugar tastes great. It's just a matter of conditioning. All right, thanks for listening. There's a full article on my website, lifespa.com. And while you're there, please check out our website. Read all of our articles, which are all for free. We have an Ayurvedic store with all of our organic ingredients. We don't sell stevia and xylitol, but check out the store for all of our skincare and Ayurvedic products. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. John Douillard. Do you like this video? Don't forget to subscribe and share.
This recording is brought to you by LifeSpa, where ancient Ayurvedic wisdom meets modern science. Get access to free health video newsletters by Dr. John at lifespa.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.